Headingley, Leeds, 1984. Malcolm Marshall smashed his left thumb while fielding. It was assumed he would take no further part in the game. But not only did he bat, he bowled in devastating fashion.
And he's gone, caught and bowled with one hand.
I remember when he broke his hand at Leeds, and we thought that they thought that he wasn't going to play. And I said, well, hey, would you like to play? And he was surprised that I'd asked him. And he said, yes, I will.
And he's gone this time. Inside edge, I suspect. Marshall has 7 wickets. His best ever figures in Test match cricket, 7 for 53.
And it just shows you, the type of spirit that we had in those days. I mean, could you ask one of these guys with a broken arm to play? I mean, but that's what we were all about. We were very good professionals, very good family, and we wanted to win.
Marshall was not tall for a fast bowler. Rather than being a drawback, this allowed him to skid the ball through to batsmen.
And that was a bouncer which hurt him.
His bouncer did a lot of damage, especially to England batsmen in the summer of 1984, Andy Lloyd and Paul Terry, because it barely looked any different from his normal delivery. I don't know how he did that. Marshall could make the ball behave like a guided missile.
He bowled a slippery, skiddy bouncer, caused all batsmen problems, could swing it at a high pace. On this day, he was unplayable.
Oh, and first ball, Malcolm Marshall has ripped the Yorker right through him.
He ran through the crease with lovely fluid action, and he generated a great deal of pace, and he was a skidder. A lot of the tall guys will hit the pitch and rear it up at you, but Malcolm skidded it from there, and you weren't quite sure if it was coming there or there or there. And a very dangerous bowler, and a very, very good one.
I've always personally struggled with tall bowlers like Joel Garner, 6'10", bowls from 10.5 feet. And Malcolm Marshall, the same pace. If not, he's probably... Big Joel actually come down and hit the wicket like that. Whereas little Malcolm Marshall used to go at you like that, and really hustled you.
Beyond his raw ability, Marshall had an exceptional cricketing brain.
Marshall was an unbelievably intelligent bowler. You'd say that and stamina actually were his strengths. He remembered everything about his opponents. He needn't play against someone for 5 years, and when he stood to face them again, he would immediately pinpoint their weaknesses and home in on them.
He used to read batsman mistake very quickly. Some bowlers can judge it, say, in half an hour by the time batsman is set. Some bowlers can judge it in first 2 minutes, and there was Malcolm Marshall, a complete bowler, a master.
All good fast bowlers are intelligent. They're cunning. They've got a street cunning when it comes to their bowling. But Malcolm Marshall was up there with the best. My career ended before his really started, so I didn't bat against him a lot. But I'm probably fortunate I didn't.
And he's bowled it. I thought he was a complete fast bowler. Could do everything with the ball, in swingers, out swingers. If it wasn't swinging, he could seam it off the deck, He was just complete. He had good pace. And I think above all, he was smart with it, So that's why I give him the edge above everybody else.
Well, there's the stump that got broken with the ball hitting the middle stump, Martin Crowe's middle stump.
For a short man, he really did bowl very, very fast. Didn't overbounce the ball, but he had all the skills too. He had the scientific approach, the big outswinger, the little outswinger, the off cutter, and occasionally used to bend the ball in from outside the off stump too. He had it all. He really did. He was one of the great fast bowlers the game's ever seen.
That's LBW. And Malcolm Marshall has now taken his 300th Test match wicket. Malcolm Marshall joins the 300 club.
Marshall's Test career began in 1978-79 after just one first-class game. He didn't immediately excel at the top level, but he did enough to book a place in the West Indies squad for the 1979 World Cup. He made his first real impact on a Test match at Old Trafford in 1980. He took 3 wickets in 14 balls, but would not fully establish himself in the Test side for another 2.5 years.
You had gone to India with the West Indies team before, but that was during World Series cricket when the World Series players weren't available for the West Indies. He came to England, I think, in the 79 World Cup, didn't play at all, he was just a part of the squad. Then he went to Australia 79-80, and I remember him playing in a game, might have been a game up country, his first game for the West Indies, and he was quick. First time I was actually seeing him bowl outside of the nets, and he bowled extremely quickly that day. And we all said to ourselves, how can a little man like this bowl this fast?
After taking 134 wickets in the 1982 English county season, Marshall finally made his mark in a home series against India in early 1983 when he took 21 wickets.
You've seen these tall West Indian fellas, and everyone knows the effectiveness that they had. Suddenly you had this little guy that came on with a hustle and bustle action that was pretty quick and very lively, but could move the ball. And certainly I think anyone that played against him had tremendous respect for Malcolm Marshall. And you know, his record speaks for itself. Whenever you talk to some of the great West Indian commentators and guys that assess fellows in the West Indies, you know, Malcolm Marshall is always right up there.
The following year, again against India, Marshall starred with both bat and ball. He took 33 wickets in 6 tests and made 240 runs, including his highest test score of 92 in the series opener.
He was a very handy batsman. He was a genuine Test number 8. He probably could have gone in a bit higher if there hadn't been Greenwich, Haynes, Richards, Lloyd, Dujon and Logie ahead of him most of the time.
Hook from Marshall high in the air and over the top for 6.
His late order batting was a thorn in the side of opposing teams, but with the ball in hand, Marshall was feared the world over.
Taking strike. That's it. The breakthrough. Dyson's gone.
The reason Marshall was the greatest of all fast bowlers was that he could adapt to all conditions. I would call him a bowler for all seasons and all places, in that he could get on the flattest wickets of, say, the subcontinent and bowl as effectively as he could on green tops in England or fast tracks in Western Australia. Indeed, it was the 83 tour of India that the West Indies made that confirmed him in the eyes of many people as so special, when he competed to such a degree that he was almost winning matches on his own.
On a lifeless Adelaide wicket, Marshall bowled one of his finest spells. As all the other bowlers struggled, he took 5 for 69 and 5 for 38.
And he's gone right through him. Beautiful delivery from Malcolm Marshall. Had Alan Border all squared up.
And the West Indies were trying to bowl us out on the last day, which they subsequently did, but it was because of Malcolm Marshall. He bowled a spell between lunch and tea, non-stop. So we're talking 2 hours of bowling. It's 100 degrees, as it is generally at that time of year in Adelaide. And he just rushed in. He decided that he had to really have a red-hot go off his long run, bowled real good pace, and just broke the back of our batting so that the West Indies end up getting a victory in that particular game. And that, to me, just sums up what it's all about with him. You know, other bowlers wouldn't have been able to do that, and even other bowlers that the West Indies had at their disposal, you know, the Joel Garners and Michael Holdings, wouldn't have been able to sustain that like Malcolm Marshall did that particular day, and throughout his career.
By the end of the 1984-85 tour of Australia, he'd taken 5 wickets or more in an innings, 11 times in 14 tests.
It's a very interesting tour for him, that 84-85 tour of Australia. He always felt that once you had done well in the subcontinent, the other place you had to conquer as a quick bowler was Australia. And to do it on pitches that didn't really help him. There were 1 or 2 slow pitches in that series, actually. The Sydney one turned square, in fact, was quite a triumph. He took 10 in the game, which in itself is an achievement. He regarded that series as the series where he fulfilled some of the arts of fast bowling that he'd searched for in practice. As a young fast bowler in Test cricket, say in 81-82, he had pace. Then he mastered the outswinger with pace. And by the 84-5 tour of Australia, he was beginning to add the in-swinger and changes of pace, able to slow down on slower pitches and still be a devastating mover of the ball and speed up on faster pitches. So he was very pleased to take wickets on a slower pitch and prove to Australians that there was more to fast bowling than just intimidation.
Oh, that's a brute of a delivery.
For the next 2 years, Marshall was irresistible. In terms of tests played, he became the quickest player to reach 200 wickets. He was at times ferocious.
He was a brute of a bowler for me because he bowled so aggressively and it was at you so often, so accurate, that there was never ever any let up. His bouncer was for me the most dangerous bouncer because it was always threatening. It was, you know, at times life-threatening.
Marshall's intelligence allowed him to think a batsman out when conditions were against him. He excelled on the subcontinent, normally purgatory for fast bowlers. In Lahore in 1986, he took 5 for 33 from 18 overs.
Malcolm was a complete fast bowler in the sense that he was capable of swinging the ball at tremendous pace. He was capable of bowling on very flat wickets, and when the ball wasn't swinging, just putting it there, probably rolling his fingers over, trying to cut it. But he knew exactly what to do for different conditions and different batsmen, and apart from that, he was willing to work for his wickets.
He could work out a batsman very clearly. He was always looking for weaknesses, for signs of weakness, or even looking at strengths and how he could perhaps try and limit those of the batsman. He simply, for me, was one of the great operators with the new ball, and then with the old ball, with the reverse swing phenomenon coming into play. Malcolm Marshall was truly a magnificent operator.
At Old Trafford in 1988, Malcolm Marshall took 5 wickets in an hour, finishing with 7 for 22 as England were dismissed for 93.
Marshall was at his absolute peak in England in 1988. It was in something of a transition period for the West Indies in terms of fast bowlers. Holding and Garner had retired the previous year. Ambrose had just come into the side. Walsh was still evolving into the great bowler that he was through the 90s. So Malcolm Marshall was definitely the man, and he rose to that. Whereas he'd been the leading bowler in a great side earlier, in '88 he really needed to climb up, and he did that so well, and never was that better illustrated than when he took 7 for 22 in that '88 series.
In Australia in 1988-89, Marshall took 5 for 29 on the spin-friendly Sydney Cricket Ground wicket.
The Sydney Cricket Ground curator produced a pitch, a spinner's pitch. There was so much a spinner's pitch that Alan Border took 11 wickets in the test. I mean, it took 7 for him one innings, and with all due respect to Border, he wasn't a test-class spin bowler. And yet on that same wicket, which was so dead for fast bowlers, Malcolm Marshall came out and adapted it to the conditions to the stage where he took 29 off 31 overs.
We're talking about a bowler here that, you know, you can imagine facing him in Brisbane or Perth where, you know, there's bounce and a little bit of sideways movement. He'd run in and bowl absolute express pace and be hard work on those conditions. But we're talking about a wicket here in Sydney that was a bit more of a turner, pretty flat facing the fast bowlers, and you know, he still finds a way to get people out. Shortens his run, runs his finger over the seam. You know, just a very, very capable fast bowler in all conditions.
He really knew the art of bowling, and I can remember one day here in Sydney where the ball never got above stump high in any stage of the game. It was certainly not a fast bowler's wicket, and yet he bowled superbly and got the wickets. And to me, it was only because of his enormous skills.
Marshall's international career ended after the 1991 tour of England. He played for Hampshire until 1993 and for Natal in South Africa until 1994-95.
And Marshall didn't just go to Hampshire for the ride or for the big salary. He was tireless bowling for Hampshire. He took hundreds of wickets for them. Everybody liked him at the club. He was exceptionally popular for someone who could do such nasty things with the ball. And he refined his skills. He used English pitches which at that time were quite green and soggy and not necessarily helpful to the out-and-out fast bowler. He made sure that without lowering his pace, at that time, he added the classic skills of the English seam and swing bowler to his arsenal.
He's played for Hampshire quite a few years, and I think that's the one thing that West Indian fast bowlers especially learned about cricket. When you played in England, okay, the conditions were changeable every single day. You might get a good pitch, a bad one. Conditions allow you to swing the ball, and I think Malcolm Marshall, more than most of us, learned from all of that.
He led Natal to the Castle Cup title and was named one of South Africa's Cricketers of the Year. He was an enormously influential figure on emerging all-rounder Shaun Pollock.
It's significant that the world's leading fast bowler today, Shaun Pollock, studied under Marshall when Marshall ended his career at Natal as a player coach, I think. I don't know whether he was formally coached, but he was definitely Pollock's mentor, and in Pollock's skill and ability to move the ball both ways, and the way he's at the batsman all the time and gives so little away, you can see plenty of Marshall in Pollock.
He had a huge impact on my career. Obviously it was the end of his, but he had so much knowledge and so much of a feel for the game that he really did teach me so much, and really helped me progress as a cricketer.
A guy like Malcolm, he was the first guy to the net, he was the last guy to leave, and he had a lot to offer everyone. And I was just so really impressed by a person who had almost reached the end of his career, and could easily have just sat back and said, well, I've done it, I'm here to take a last sort of payout and then I'm out of here. But he gave so much back to cricket.
Marshall on his way to him. Oh, he's bowling! And Marshall runs down the wicket.
Those who played alongside Marshall say that no matter what level of cricket he was playing, he never gave less than 100%.
Malcolm Marshall's the best West Indian bowler I've ever seen. He had a wonderfully competitive nature, but no matter what the conditions, he could bowl on it. I think you have a look at Malcolm Marshall's record. He toured India, he toured Pakistan, he toured everywhere, and he performed in every country. He had superb control, he bowled superb line and length. His variations were tremendous.
Good student to give. He learned as he went. He was never perfect in his mind. And I mean, we've talked until the day, literally, that he died. But I would tell you, Malcolm Marshall, in his mind, was never perfect. He was always trying to get better.
Marshall became ill with colon cancer during the 1999 World Cup. Chemotherapy was ineffective, and he died in November 1999. Among his pallbearers were 5 West Indian captains.
When you think of the kind of opponent he was, fearsome. I mean, Malcolm hit more batsmen than any bowler of his own era, maybe ever, with that deadly skidding bouncer. He got more out too. He had a fantastic strike rate and took a lot of wickets. And yet still all around the world, the sorrow was evident. Messages came from everywhere. I was given the great honour of doing the eulogy at the funeral in Barbados, and anybody who was anybody in Barbadian, West Indian, Hampshire, South African cricket who had been close to him, the one person who couldn't get there was Shaun Pollock, but who wanted to, was there, and it was a very emotional occasion.
Malcolm Marshall had contributed greatly to cricket and influenced many of those who followed him. Most importantly, he played the game with intensity, honesty, and joy in the best traditions of West Indian cricket.
Was a very delightful person. Only a few months before he died, 3 months before he died actually, I sat with him through 2 sessions at a test match in Barbados, and I have never enjoyed 2 hours or 3 hours with him more with any other player I can recall. It was just a marvellous time to talk about. And he was talking about young players coming through, and he was talking about the skills that he used, and it was just fun to listen to him. His knowledge of cricket was enormous.
I think for me that the most endearing thing about Malcolm was how humble he was. I mean, he was a master of his craft, and was prepared to share that, not the secret, but just share the keys with players who were developing, up and coming young players, old players, and he was, a humble person who was just prepared to give.
He was exceptionally well liked, considering that he could do some fairly unpleasant things with the ball. Nobody ever held that against him, because off the field he was full of smiles. Everybody called him Mako. He was very popular in Hampshire, where he really gave a lot. He didn't just turn up and earn the big salary, as overseas stars occasionally do. He was liked throughout the West Indies, where there's a lot of inter-island rivalry, but he rose above that. He wasn't very successful as West Indies coach. He had a difficult time, but because that was towards the end of their great era. They were a team on the slide, and he couldn't prevent that for all the good work he was doing with the bowlers.
Malcolm Marshall played in 81 Test matches. He took 376 wickets at an average of 20.94. He made 1,810 runs at an average of 18.85 and took 25 catches. He took 5 wickets in an innings on 22 occasions and 10 wickets in a match 4 times.
It was one of my favourite cricketers, not to face, but just in admiration. Because he was a short man, he couldn't get bounce, but he developed a skill with his fast arm, chest, his open chest action, and he just moved the ball with his wrist, little subtle movements of the wrist, and he was able to swing it both ways. He had a wonderful attitude, and obviously he was very strong in the ability to get the ball to kick, to climb, off a length. He worked players out. He was very intelligent. He knew exactly what he was trying to achieve, and he did. I thought he was the most complete fast bowler to come from the Caribbean.
You've probably got half a dozen, 10 real quality fast bowlers to choose from, but I think day in, day out, in all conditions, I'd have to say that Malcolm Marshall is my pick. But you know, you'll get different players that will come up with a different answer, but yeah, he was something special.
For his sheer pace and his intelligent use of it, for his total commitment to giving his all in every match, for his revered status in West Indies cricket, and for his influence on today's finest fast bowlers, Malcolm Marshall joins the ranks of ESPN's Legends of Cricket.
His bouncer did a lot of damage, especially to England batsmen in the summer of 1984, Andy Lloyd and Paul Terry, because it barely looked any different from his normal delivery. I don't know how he did that. Marshall could make the ball behave like a guided missile.
He bowled a slippery, skiddy bouncer, caused all batsmen problems, could swing it at a high pace. On his day, he was unplayable.
Oh, and first ball, Malcolm Marshall has ripped the Yorker right through him.
He ran through the crease with lovely fluid action, and he generated a great deal of pace. He was a skidder. A lot of the tall guys will hit the pitch and rear it up at you, but Malcolm skidded it from there, and you weren't quite sure if it was coming there or there or there. And a very dangerous bowler, and a very, very good one.
I've always personally
Headingley, Leeds, 1984. Malcolm Marshall smashed his left thumb while fielding. It was assumed he would take no further part in the game. But not only did he bat, he bowled in devastating.
And it just shows you, the type of spirit that we had in those days. I mean, could you ask one of these guys with a broken arm to play? I mean, but that's what we were all about. We were very good professionals, very good family, and we wanted to win.
Marshall was not tall for a fast bowler. Rather than being a drawback, this allowed him to skid the ball through to batsmen.
And that was a bouncer which hurt him.
Fashion.
And he's gone, caught and bowled with one hand.
I remember when he broke his hand at Leeds, and we thought that they thought that he wasn't going to play. And I said, well, hey, would you like to play? And he was surprised that I'd asked him. And he said, yes, I will.
And he's gone this time. Inside edge, I suspect. Marshall has 7 wickets. His best ever figures in Test match cricket, 7 for 53.